Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Slay a Tray Thursday. This week, our theme is Campfire, and that could not be any more appropriate for this time of year because I have to tell you, it went from mildly summerish here to freaking cold. It is so cold. I had to turn on the heat. It is the middle of October, and I had to turn the heat on. I have no words. Anyway, so Slay a Tray Thursday, campfire theme. If you guys saw but 2 weeks ago, Beverly shamed me in her creation. It was so amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so next level. So I had to step up my game. So this week, I went way overboard. And let's just dive in and I'll show you what happened. So I have a vision, and it involves, check it out, flames, fire. So I went online, I found some pictures of flames that I liked, and I printed them out in 3 different sizes because I'm not exactly sure how big I want the flames to be in comparison to the tray. So I printed out 3 different sizes so that we could compare them and kind of get an idea of what's going to be the closest to scale. So the tray I'm going to do is the rectangular one, and it's this exact same tray, obviously not this one, but it's the same tray mold. So I laid this down so that we could cut out the flames and look at them and get an idea of which one is going to work out the best. I was pretty ambitious with the big one, pretty ambitious, and that definitely was way too big. So I opted for one of the smaller ones, and here's what we're going to do. This is going to be, dare I say it, fire? I know, it's a little cringy, but I was very excited. I'm sorry. So here's my brilliant idea. Brilliant. I have these sheets of acetate, and I thought, what I'll do is I will take the flames, attach them with some tape to the acetate, and then I will get a whole bunch of colored UV resin. I will go around it, I'll cure it, and it will be magical. It will be so brilliant that the entire world will just be like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. At least that was how it played out in my mind. That's probably not how it would play out in anyone else's mind. So I had this idea. So my idea was that I was going to use this colored UV resin that I had. I got this on Temu, and I've never used it before. It's been sitting in the jars in the cabinet for, I don't even know. And I've never used it because I don't use a lot of UV resin. So I thought, hey, this is the perfect time. Let's break it out. So far, so good. So I'm going to take a paper towel. I'm just going to put it behind it so that you can better see this, dare I say, magic. I think that magic might be too strong of a word. So with this resin in particular, I've never used a colored UV resin before. So I've always just made it colored myself. I've always just taken clear UV resin and added alcohol ink to it and just used that. But I figured I had it, why not use it? However, it's so unbelievably light. So light that you really can't even tell that it's colored. So you would either have to go over it a bunch of different times and hope for the best, or I thought in all of my not thinking, I'll add some alcohol ink to it and I'll just make it a little bit darker, which, hey, in theory, that should work, right? So I put some UV resin into a medicine cup. I added a little bit of alcohol ink, gave it a nice little stir, put it in a squeezy bottle, and then went around the flames with the different colors. So there's some red, there's some orange, and a couple of different shades of yellow, and just kind of traced the flames using the UV resin. This is kind of where things went a little awry. So one, I hit the acetate with a lighter to burst any bubbles that might be on top of the UV resin. I think I got a little too close to the acetate, so I think that was part of my first issue. Secondly, I cured it with a UV lamp, but I think I really should have started at a higher distance rather than like close down to it. Because eventually what ended up happening is that the flames adhered to the acetate. So I go through the entire process of making the flames, and they turned out beautiful, don't get me wrong. But the problem was that they were stuck to the acetate. And honestly, in hindsight, I should have just cut out around with and just left the acetate attached. But, that's hindsight. So what did I do? I just did it over again. And then I did it over again. So yeah. So what I decided to do instead was I had some acrylic blanks that are just really thin sheets of acrylic that I use to make Christmas ornaments. And I did the exact same process, but I did it on the acrylic blank. And I also didn't use the Timu resin. I used just the regular J. Diction UV resin and colored it with alcohol inks. And I had no problems whatsoever. It cured just fine. Everything turned out great. But yeah, there's my I'm stuck to the acetate and never coming off flame. But honestly, the acrylic blank ended up working out just fine. It just has, a little bit of some of the blank space around the top, but I'm okay with it. I think it actually turned out really cute. I mixed up about 14-ish ounces of resin, and I'm just going to take and divide it into some different containers. These are like little snack containers that I got. I think they're 4-ish ounces. They are perfect for mixing up resin and just kind of like dividing it out. So I'm going to take, and my idea is that I want to make the tray kind of night sky-y, night sky-esque. You get the idea. And I want to start with like some dark blues, some blues that are a little bit lighter, some purple, magenta-y, then maybe like some yellow, and maybe a little clear in the middle to kind of give that idea of it's evening, it's the campfire, let's roast some marshmallows, just that whole like fall, wintry outdoors experience. So I'm going to start with my darkest color, and I'm going to just kind of pour that around the rim. So that's kind of what's going to be on the rim, the bottom of the rim of the tray. And then I'll come in behind with each of the subsequent lighter colors and just fill everything in until it's completely full. And just like magic, it's completely full. And those colors are going to continue to move. So you've got that, the darker colors around the outside, and then it gets, a little bit lighter. And then when you get towards the middle, there's that huge part of the orange that's there. As the resin continues to move, all of those colors are just going to kind of merge a little bit more. So it's not going to be, the difference isn't going to be quite as stark as it is right now, as it kind of, moves and does its own thing. So this is the finished product after it's fully cured. And can I just tell you, I love these colors together. I think they're stunning. Can I also tell you, they don't really give me night sky vibes, but I still love them. I still think that they all go really nicely together, and they're beautiful, but maybe not quite night sky, but that's okay. We'll work on it. So I also got this wild idea that, hey, if we're going to have a campfire, why don't we have like some tents and some trees and maybe a camper or two? And then for our campfire, we need some logs. So I thought I would make several sets of like tents and trees and campers, and then we would build our campfire in the center of our tray. Once we demold it and take it out and all of that, we'll build our campfire in the center of the tray. So I will go through and multiple times make all of these different little pieces to go into that general overall scene. I was really excited to unmold this and see what it looks like from the front. And then it was kind of one of those things where you go, wah, wah, because when you look at it like this on the black background, that's so not what I was going for. That is so clear and so transparent. I kind of wrestled with what I wanted to do with the back of that, if I wanted to make it white or if I wanted to make it black. And I thought that if I did it black, it would be so muted and so many of those colors would just fade away that I opted to do it in white. And honestly, I'm actually really happy that I did. It turns out so good with the white because that's what it would look like with the black, right? Just kind of muted, kind of dull, maybe more night sky-y, but just, I don't know, not quite as pretty as what I was going for. So this is what it looks like with the white background, and I think it's so much better than the dark. I think the white, those colors, they all go so well together. Maybe not quite night sky, but still, I think we can go with twilight, almost nighttime, getting close, starting the campfire. So as you can see, I've been very busy. I was very, very, very busy making lots and lots of little logs and trees and campers and tents and some tree stumps. Very busy. But I feel like this is where I go, what do I do now? Because now I have all of these pieces. How do I assemble them and how do I make it cohesive? And I struggle with that. So I thought, you know what, let's at least start with the center. Let's start with the middle and then we can work our way out. I thought I would use super glue, but you know what? Resin doesn't really super glue itself to other resin. At least I have zero success with that. I get a lot of stickiness that gets all over my fingers and then I super glue my fingers to things, but the resin, just does not super glue itself to each other. So I went with option number 2 and oh, how I hate this option. This is like one of my least favorite options for pretty much anything. It's 5-minute epoxy. If you have never used this could literally be used in warfare as a torture technique. The stench is, it is real. The stench is so, so bad. I can't even tell you. I mean, we're talking like the worst rotting low tide you could ever smell. And it's not even from the chemical reaction. It is quite literally just the individual components that reek. Oh my goodness. I did not have my respirator on in the beginning. And the second I opened it, I remembered how bad it smells. And of course, I should have already had it on. So I did run and grab it really quickly before I passed out from the absolute overwhelming stench. So once you get past the smell, it's basically just your normal 1-to-1. You can weigh it if you want to. You could weigh out grams. I typically just put a dollop on a piece of acetate and just put 2 dollops the same size and then mix it together. Give it a really good mix. 45 seconds, a minute, something like that. Just make sure that it's really well incorporated. You have a tiny amount of working time, it's 5-minute epoxy. So you have about 5 minutes. And remember that stirring time is included in that. So just make sure, stir it up as good as you can in, 45-ish seconds. And then get to work. I started out by gluing on one of the logs, and then I'll epoxy on the other one. My idea is that I want to attach the logs to the flames. Once that's secured, then I'm going to come back in and then attach the logs and the flame to the bottom of the tray and then put a couple of logs around it. That's kind of at least my idea at this point. And can I just say that with 5-minute epoxy, you have to have a plan. I had an inkling, but I didn't have a plan, not a solid plan. And what happens if you don't have a plan is that you start to rush and then you make mistakes, which is exactly what I did. So I had enough epoxy left to start layering in the bottom of my tray. So I only have 2 hands. I need to hold the sticks or the logs against the fire so that they're adhered to each other, right? Then I thought, but you know what? I'm going to put the epoxy down on the bottom of the tray and then I'll start building everything around it. Well, because my epoxy was getting ready to set, it was so thick and so gloopy. I put my flames down the wrong way. So I put them down. I wanted to basically turn them 180 degrees. So I wanted them to face the direction that the tray is right now, and instead I put it the opposite way. Does it really matter? I mean, no, not in the long run. It is what it is. But I do wish that I would have, one, had a better plan, or two, that I would have just said, okay, you know what, there's a little bit of epoxy left, whatever, I'll just mix up some more instead of trying to rush it and then making that mistake. So off camera, I did a bunch of stuff. I attached everything, the campers and the trees and the logs and the fire. I did all of those things in the same exact manner that I did the logs. I mixed up small batches of 2-part epoxy, or the 5-minute epoxy, and then just attached them to the different parts of the tray. Okay, and the fire is so fire. It's so good. Okay, at least I think it's so good. I love the way it turned out. I wrestled with if I should back it or not, but I didn't really want to back it because I like the fact that you can see the flames through each side. So I'm going to leave it clear. And then I just I took and I put all of the different little elements that I had made around the edges. I tried to figure out if there was a way that I could put things more off of the edge and keep them vertical, and it didn't look right when I did that. So I just put them around the edges. So if I was going to do it again, I think I would try to find a way to put it to where we can have things that are not just necessarily along the edges. But I think that it turned out really cute. I do like it. I wonder if it's a little bit on the busy side. I do try to stick with less is more, but in this case, I kind of went with more is more because it was cute and I liked it. Although I do wish that those flames were facing the other direction. That is my one massive regret in this. I mean, not like I cut my bangs during a full moon while watching YouTube tutorials on how to do it. Massive regret, but I really do wish I had not rushed it and I had turned it the other way. So because I put all these little elements in there, I did, do the 2-part or the 5-minute epoxy, but I wanted to make sure that they were good and in there, that they weren't going to break off and fall off and all of that. So I thought we would add a little bit of a top coat just to hold them in place. So I mixed up the J. Diction 4-hour fast cure. We all know how I feel about that. I don't love the 4-hour fast cure of any resin, mostly because it's just thick and it's difficult to work with and it holds on to bubbles and it's just not fun. But I was in a little bit of a time crunch. I'm not exactly sure how this happened. Someone please help me, because I started this project a week and a half ago. Quite literally a week and a half ago, I started it. It is now Wednesday night at 9 p.m. and I am just finishing it. Slay a Trade Thursday is quite literally tomorrow, and I am just now finishing it. I don't know where time has gone, how I have completely mismanaged it, but we're rushing a little bit. So 4-hour fast cure, and then it's going on a heat mat to make sure that it is fully cured so I can get those final photos, and then we will be all finished with the project. I also noticed that every time I use the heat gun, that glitter flies out of the tray. I put some glitter on the trees for a snow effect, and apparently it's coming off in some places, and so the glitter's like flying everywhere. So it'll be a nice like winter wonderland when all of this is said and done. So I think that's going to do it for the top coat. I'm just going to pop this on the heat mat for a couple of hours, and then I will come back. We'll do a final review of everything, and then hopefully I'll get this edited in time for tomorrow. Well, today when you're watching it. And here we are, 3 hours later. It looks pretty much the same, just a little bit shinier, and everything is well set in there now. And gosh, you guys, that's it. That's Slay a Trade Thursday Campfire Edition. Proof that, I don't know, sometimes chaos can look like art. I guess if you squint hard enough and ignore the parts that just didn't go like we had planned. So it started out as a relaxing craft night and ended up somewhere around emotional support heat gun. But honestly, that's just the slay a tray way, at least for me. So if you want to see what actual talented people made while I was busy sticking my elbow in wet resin, check out Slay a Tray Thursday playlist. It's in the description box below. It's full of campfire inspired creations that will make you wonder why we all willingly do this to ourselves every 2 weeks. And speaking of which, join us in 2 weeks for the next Slay a Tray Thursday, where I will once again underestimate the power of gravity, glitter, and my own bad decisions. Bring snacks and maybe a fire extinguisher. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time.